Moving on in Chapter 8, on page 257 in the book, we're going to talk about resizing and reshaping type objects. Lots of different ways we can do this. We're going to look at making columns. We're going to look at changing the shape of the text box from being a rectangle to being something else. And we're going to flow type around graphics. Let's see. Fit all in window. So make sure you're in Illustrator, Command Option 0. And we're going to take our selection tool and we're going to select the August 19th, 20th from Artboard 1. And we're going to Option drag or Alt drag it over to the other side so that we just have this text version sitting over here as well. And we're going to bring it up kind of in this area right here. And then we're going to do the same thing with the Saturday, Sunday type. We're going to Option and drag that over and put it below that on the right. So we have two versions that we can start working with over here. Fit Artboard in the window is going to bring, actually we need Artboard 2, not Artboard 1. And fit that in the window. And with our selection tool, we're going to click on the type at the top of the page. Notice it puts a bounding box around just that top type. It's still threaded to the other one, but the other one isn't selected yet. We're just selecting the top text item. We're going to go up to our type menu. We want to do something different with this box. So we're going to go up to our type menu and we're going to choose Type Options. Area Type Options, if my thing would stop spinning. There we go. Area Type Options. This is going to give us a pop-up window. Move it off to the side and turn on the preview so you can see what's happening. So this is telling us how wide and tall our text box is, how many rows it currently has, how many columns. We're going to go into the columns and click up to turn it into two different columns. The gutter is the space in between. So 0.25 inches is the space in between. If you wanted to change that, the gutter is what you would affect. That's also a design and layout term. So the gutter is the space between things, between columns. The gutter in a magazine is where the two pages come together and go down into the seam. And you have to account for how, if you have a graphic that spreads across two pages, how much of the picture is going to be down in the gutter and kind of lost in the printing process. So a couple things you have to think about. We're going to leave it at the defaults, but we're going to change it to have two columns with our preview on and then say, okay, we like that. We're now going to take the bounding point. Notice it's not column by column bounding, it's the whole thing. So as we pull down, our columns are getting bigger or deeper and deeper. And we're going to pull down until our type overlaps the top of the truck a little bit. Obviously for readability, legibility, this is not good. It's hard to read that, but we want to do that first. All right, another thing that we can do, so we just took that top piece and we turned it into two columns. Another thing that we can do is reshape the box itself. So take your selection tool and click on the type box below. So the one that got threaded down to the lower level, there still should be some type in that. We're going to take this and we're going to move it over. We're going to take this box and move it over so that it's over here. And we're going to also make it smaller so that the type kind of fits like this. So we're going to make it less wide and we're going to push it over so it's to the left of our words right now. You want to move that around, you can do that. This left-hand border, or the right side border, I'm sorry, we want to align with the back of the truck. So that's kind of your area of alignment right there. Zoom in a few times so that we can see this lower bounding box better. And we're going to take our direct selection tool. So switch to that tool, the white filled in arrow, and we're going to come down and we're going to click on the lower right bounding point to select just that. Notice the other three are not filled in, this one is. Now we're going to move this, and notice how we're changing the shape. We want to hold it, we don't want it to go up or down, we just want to move it to the left. So we're going to hold the shift key, and that's going to keep us straight on that line, and we're going to move our bounding box over so that the Saturday, Sunday stuff it's not bumping into. So we're making a weird shape text box that our type is going to fill into. Take your direct selection tool and move this lower corner over. Okay, that makes sense. We can change the way our text boxes look using the direct selection tool to modify the different corners. All right, next thing we're going to do is create, meaning come up with and name and save some different text styles and then apply them. How many of you in Microsoft Word have used some of that formatting, like where you click on the header and it makes your header bigger and blue and whatever, or you click on body copy? What's the upside to using text styles? Why would you do that rather than just going in and highlighting individual words and changing them? It has a lot to do with why we use global colors. Global is the word. Change your mind, it changes everywhere in the document, right? So if you have all of your headlines set up to be Colt bold 118 point, and then your client says, yeah, that's too, I don't like that, let's go with Comic Sans instead. A, you would fight them because Comic Sans is bad. We need to learn that as graphic designers. It is not a professional typeface. But B, if they did want that, you would go into the style of text that you named headline, and you would change it from Colt to Comic Sans. And anywhere you had that applied throughout your document, think of a magazine, hundreds of pages, it automatically is globally updated. Okay, so text styles help us consistency and make changes quickly across our whole document. We can do character styles and paragraph styles, both. We're going to start with paragraph styles. Fit all in the window first. Let's do that. And make sure you have your regular type tool, not that funky one. And click somewhere in our threaded text over here on the right to insert your cursor. And by inserting our cursor in text, when we create a paragraph style, the formatting attributes from that paragraph are saved. So whatever, when we clicked in here, whatever formatting is applied to this, which is right now justified type with right, flush right last lines, and 6 points of space at the end of each paragraph. Those are the rules that we've told this. By clicking in here, that's the first rule it's stored in its brain. It knows that that could be a rule. We're going to go up to our window menu, and then we're going to choose type. And we're going to choose paragraph styles. So come down to paragraph styles. It's going to pop open a free-floating window that has two tabs, paragraph styles and character styles. Right now what's highlighted is normal paragraph style, which means the default whatever with a plus sign behind it. Whenever there's a plus, that means that you've modified it. So what we started with in Illustrator, we've changed to be this weird justify with right edges and 6 points of type. That's what that plus sign means. It's been saved. At the bottom of this window, we have the new icon, and it says create a new style. So we're going to click on that. And where we have paragraph style 1, this has captured everything that we just did in this document. We're going to double click on it to rename it, and we're going to call this body. So it's our body copy. Then hit return. When we double click on this name to edit it, Not only were we able to edit the name, we were also able to apply this style to whatever was selected at the time. And we aren't applying anything new. The Roboto, exactly as it is with the spacing, that's what was applied. So there's no visible change. However, let's select all, Command A to select all of that. Notice that all of it is not highlighted as having that paragraph style of body, and we want to assign that. So we're going to click on the body style, and that's going to assign it to everything. Take your selection tool, and back on this first page, we're going to click on Pi O Pi. Do you guys remember typing that early on? You might want to zoom into that. That was one of the first things we typed in. And in our paragraph style, we're going to apply the body style to that as well. So click on the body style, and that gives it the same style as the body copy on the other page. We're going to modify this a little bit though. We're going to go to our appearance panel, and we're going to change it to be 24-point type. We're going to make it a little bit bigger. And we're going to change the fill color from black to pink. And then we're just going to position it on the artboard. Take your selection tool, and we're going to bring it down below the food trucks and below that first straight line. So we set up a paragraph style called body, and we assigned it some attributes. Notice what I just did. Let me go back to that. Pi O Pi, we made that a larger type size and pink. So it's warning us in this paragraph style, yes, you applied the paragraph style of body, but you've done a few more things to it. That's why the plus sign is there, so we've modified it a little. If we were to click on this and take away the plus sign, it would go back to being black type and a little bit smaller like it originally was. All right, click somewhere to deselect everything and fit both artboards in your window. And with our selection tool, we're going to pick one of the threaded objects at the top. And we're going to edit the body style. So right now we've chosen these type boxes, and we can see in our paragraph style that body is the style that's being applied. We're going to double click to the right of the word body. So in this blank area over here, we're going to double click. And that's going to bring up our paragraph style where we can change some things. So we can see here's the character formatting that's being applied. Here's the indent and spacing, and we can go through and change anything in here that we'd like. We're going to select the category called indents and spacing. And this right justify is nonsense. We are going to change it to be left, the way we normally read. Our space after is still 6 points, and we're fine with that. So everywhere that the body style is applied, it now should be left aligned. Our Pi O Pi probably didn't change because our bounding box is the exact size of this, so whether it was right or left aligned, we visually don't see a difference in that. Say OK, and we've now updated our body style. Character styles, let's click away from everything. That's this other window up here. Character styles can be applied to selected text, and it's only character formatting. We can't talk about things like justifying or alignment or anything like that with character styles. Select your threaded type again and zoom in that you can see it a little bit better. And take your type tool, and inside this type, we're going to highlight the word food truck rodeo, or the 3 words. So the first time you see that in that first paragraph, highlight it. And we're going to change the fill color of these words to be brown from the swatches. And we're going to choose, instead of Roboto Light, we're going to choose Roboto Italic. So from the drop-down box here, choose the italic version of Roboto. Back up in your floating paragraph and character styles panel, click on the tab to activate the character styles. And notice it says normal plus. Whatever was normal, we've done stuff to it. We've made it brown and italic and all sorts of stuff. Instead of going like we did before and click on this new tab and then having to name it and set things up, we're going to do it all in one step by option clicking on this new tab right here. So option click on it. That allows us to rename it and set up some specifics right away. In the renaming, we're going to call it event name. We're happy with everything we see here. We don't want it necessarily added to our library. If this is your real life project, maybe you do want this added. So make sure that's deselected and then say OK. Now we have event name and normal character, like stripped of all styling, are our two options. Notice that Food Truck Rodeo does not have anything assigned to it. We need to assign event name, so click on that, and that assigns that character style to the 3 words that we have highlighted. Now I want you to go through and find, there's a couple more instances of Food Truck Rodeo, highlight them, and click on event name. Highlight them, click on event name. So with one click, you're applying many different options. In this case, it's just brown and italic, but it could be a whole bunch of different things. It could be bold, it could be a different font. Whatever we tell that style to be, we're applying it with one click.
Is there a way to search for that text? Like if you have it
Yes.
and then instead of trying to find it.
Yes, just like in Word, there's a
Okay.
find. Yep.
All right.
Yep. There's only 3. It goes into lorem ipsum real quickly because I thought the same thing. I'm like, good grief.
Yeah.
How much searching are we going to do? There's just these 3 instances, but yes,
Okay.
definitely. There's smart things like that. In InDesign, there's find and replace. You know, if you type their name wrong over and over and you want to find every version of that and type it correctly and replace it just like in Word. Yep. Good question. Okay, so we're happy with that. We've got Food Truck Rodeo assigned. Let's click away to deselect. What if you want to edit that style? What if your client says, yeah, I don't like that being brown, that looks stupid, it should be fuchsia, I don't know. They tell you weird things, trust me. So again, because it's a style, it's a global update, a global edit, and it can be very quick. Double click to the right of the word event name to get back into our options here. And they said, you know what? We don't like what we did here. Character color, let's click on that option. Right now we told it to be brown. They said, no, we want it to be black. But look at all the options. You have tints, you have all your swatches available here. Add to your library, no thank you. Previews turned on so we could see that now it's black instead. And we're good with that, so we say okay. And again, if you have 50 instances of this in your document, you appreciate the speed of this. So character styles, paragraph styles. If I want to know if you did these and use these, I would go to the window and I would open these and I would look for something new named in here, and I would look for it being assigned in certain spots. So this works also in Photoshop, by the way. Exact same feature. It's nice when the 2 of them actually play together and behave. Close that panel, we're done with that, and then let's save our document. Let's switch back to Artboard 1. And another cool feature in Illustrator, and I think we've used this one other time, is the eyedropper in Illustrator. And what that does is it samples whatever you click on and applies it to whatever you have selected at the time. So whatever attributes it has, whatever color and strokes and special effects of the sampled item are applied to whatever you have selected. Let's take our type tool and click in the blank space above the word corral here. So click in there and we get lorem ipsum, and type in all caps Food Truck Rodeo. You guys notice how it's typing in, by the way? It has the styling of what we just did. It has the italics and the black of the food truck, of that last trait that we were using. Hey, do you guys remember when I used to click with the type tool and my bounding box would be normal, but my type would go like this and I couldn't figure out what the hell was going on? I Googled and Googled and Googled and got nothing. And then I reached out to a friend who teaches this and she's like, I don't know, that's bizarre. Maybe uninstall Illustrator and try again. And I did, and it's fixed. So weird voodoo that you will hit. Always if you're having problems with a tool or something and you know you're doing it right, I say save your file, close it, close Illustrator, count to 10, reopen it all, and quite often it works. But in this case, I literally had to uninstall Illustrator. Not just make sure I was updated like I had been doing, I had to uninstall and reinstall. Because when I was working through this a week ago, and I typed that in, my food truck rodeo was going at an angle again. And then we're gonna do cool stuff with it and nothing was working, so. Helpful hint, when all else fails, reinstall or restart your computer or something like that. All right, click the here's the thing too. Here's a trick that works in Microsoft Word also. If you click once with the type tool, you put your insertion point in. If you click twice, you get the word that you're hovering over. If you click 3 times, you get the whole paragraph. So don't know if you knew that before, but it works in everything. It works in Word also. So event food truck rodeo is currently stylized as that event name. It's black and italic, and we don't want that. So we're going to take our eyedropper tool, and instead of going and finding a preset style, we're just going to find something that we like on this page already, and we're going to sample it. So we're going to take our tool, and we're going to hover over the letter C in Corral, and we're going to click. It says, okay, you now can have Colt Bold 118 point pink. Are you happy? That was pretty simple, wasn't it? Versus looking at this, writing down all the details about it. We just sampled it. It's a little big, so we need to change our font size down to 55. And again, you wouldn't know that without trying. And then let's just move it over in this zone over here, food truck rodeo. And then click away to deselect it. And let's hit save. Okay, we're kind of bumping all around. We're now going to go back to Artboard 2 and do something I thought we should have done a while ago, but whatever. We're going to go to Artboard 2 and we're going to wrap text. So our 2 columns of type are over top of our food truck, and it's hard to read, and you would never do that in the real world. So what we want to do is wrap the text around these objects. We don't necessarily want to take the columns and make them angled like we did the box below. We want to actually wrap them organically around the shape of this food truck in a very soft and pleasing way. So we need to be in Artboard 2, which we are. Take your selection tool and click on the food truck itself. And notice it's a bunch of shapes. That's something that you guys can make quite easily. There's a circle and a rounded rectangle and a triangle with a rounded corner. You guys could make that in like 2 seconds now, right? Yes, super easy now. And we apply the thing that we want to wrap it around. We're applying the text wrap to it. So with that selected, we're going to say Object, and then down towards the bottom, Text Wrap, Make. Now, a couple of caveats of this working. The object itself has to be in the same layer that you're working on with your type. So let's go look at our layer panel. Let's spin open the text layer. Notice the food truck, ice cream truck that we're working on is currently targeted. See that little blue dot to the right of it? That's the one that we currently have highlighted. So that's our food truck. And then all of our type is on this layer. So they're in the same layer. That's good. That's important. However, the object has to be at the top of the stack in order for this to work. So we could either drag it up in the layer stack, or we could just click back in our properties panel. There's an arrange button down here towards the bottom, and we could say bring it to the front. Go back in your layers. It did the same thing as if you would have dragged that layer to the top of the stack. It's now at the top. Notice how the text now floats around it. It put a space, a little gap here between the graphic and our words, and how much space it puts there is something that we can tweak also. To tweak that, we go back to Object, text wrap, and then we see an option for text wrap options. There's also release or undo. That's where you would find that. So in our options panel, how much of an offset? Let's crank that up to a high number to see how it behaves, like 20. There's putting 20 pixels or points of space around it. If you don't want that, object, text wrap options, 20 is good. Also, sorry, without getting out of it, we could have checked our preview box and saw how it looked. So maybe 50 and hit tab, and in your preview that shows how much space. That's a little awkward. The 6 was too tight, 50 is too much, 20 looks good. And say OK. And then click away from it. So that looks much better, right? Pretty cool. Key to that is the object has to be in the same layer and it has to be at the top of the stack for that to work. And you tell the object, the thing, to be the text wrapped object, not the text. Sometimes that seems a little backwards. All right, let's go back to Artboard 1. Like I said, we're jumping around and go back to our food truck rodeo, stuff we just typed in. And do you guys see how they have all these lines in here and there's this arched black line? You guys seen it where the type kind of fits this, where it gets bigger and fatter and kind of fills this zone? We want to do that. It's something similar in Photoshop. It's about using the envelopes and then shoving our words inside of them. So from Artboard 1, click on the food truck rodeo object. So with your selection tool, click on that. And this is what we want to turn into an envelope distort using warp. So we're going to do object and then do envelope distort. And we have options. Make it with a warp, with a mesh, or with the top object. We're going to choose make with warp. And then we have this window pop up again, and we can turn on our preview. And we can see this is how an arc would look. This is how bulge would look. This is how fish would look. So you can look at all of these, and then once you find one that you like, you can also change the amount of bend, the horizontal and vertical distortion, and whether it's a horizontal or vertical bulge itself. So you can change that. At the end, we want to do arc upper, horizontal, bend is 30%, and the distortions are at 0. That's where we want to end. And then say OK. So we've now taken text and we put it inside of this specially shaped envelope and made it fit. So there's two things you can edit. You can edit the shape itself, or you can go back and edit the type, and you do those individually. So with this object still selected, look over at our properties panel, and at the very top we see envelope, and then there's two icons. We see the envelope or the shape of the thing, and then we see the contents. Those are the two different things that we can edit. We want to edit the contents, so click on that. And now we're actually editing the words themselves. So take your type tool and hover over it. And when you hover over it, you get a preview of what it used to be in blue before you applied this funkiness to it. So food truck rodeo used to look like that. We're going to click on the word rodeo, whoops, and we're going to take it away. And we're going to take out that space. So we didn't mean to write rodeo, we just meant to write food truck. So we've edited those words. Now we're going to go back to our selection tool, and we're going to go back up to the top of the properties panel, and we're going to edit the shape of the envelope itself. We're going to click on that icon. And then rather than having to go through the menu of object, warp, whatever, we see a quick action is loaded right down here at the bottom of our properties panel. We have a quick action of warping options. And here's where you can say, yeah, it's a bit much. How about just a 20% bend? And you can change it back down to that and say, okay. Take this object and move it into this zone. And it doesn't quite fit perfectly, but because this was originally typed in as point type, we can stretch it with the bounding boxes. We're going to shift drag any one of the corners so that it stays proportionate. And we're just going to make it bigger. Kind of get it to fill that space. You can use the arrow keys on your keyboard too to nudge it up or down or left or right as well. So that's putting stuff into envelopes. Let's do a save at that point. And we're now going to look at type on a path, which is kind of cool. We've done that before also, where we make our type follow a path. I think we did that in Photoshop. With our selection tool, we're going to go down to the bottom underneath these two food trucks. Maybe you want to zoom in down there a little bit more. There's a brown line. We're going to select it. So when you have it selected, it's a path. If we look over in our properties panel, it's a 2-point brown stroke path. We're going to switch to our type tool. And in order to make type on a path, you have to first draw the path. So we want our type to go on this arc, or let's just say it was a wavy line. Whatever it is, you have to make the line first before you add your type to it. So keep that in mind. That's why this brown line exists in the first place. Hover your cursor over the middle of this path. When you get your normal insertion point, you're just in the normal type tool. Don't do anything. When you're over the path, at some point, your insertion changes to have a wavy dotted line through it. When you see that, click once. And because my paragraph setting down here is still saying left, that's why all my type goes there. Had I preset it to be centered, when I clicked there, my type would have gone equally left and right. So we have lorem showing right now. Let's go to Window, and then go down to Type, and go to, Window, Type, go to Paragraph Styles, and it says Normal Plus. We want to click on that to just apply the normal paragraph style without any modifications. It takes that plus sign away. So you can see it's just small, normal type, nothing stylized. Now right here, we're going to type in over 30 local food truck vendors. Once you have that typed in, select it, either with clicking and dragging or a Command A will select that line of type. And we're going to go stylize it over in the Properties panel. We're going to tell it to have a fill color of pink. We're going to tell its type to be Roboto. So if you click on the type and start typing in ROB, you're going to see the Roboto family. We want Roboto bold. For a size, we want it to be 40. And then at the bottom, no, we're not going to do it that way. Instead of going to the bottom and choosing all caps or uppercase like we've done with those icons, we're actually going to go to our menu. This is another place you can do this. Under the Type drop down up in our menu, we have an option called Change Case, and we can put it all in uppercase here. If you've ever gotten stuff from people that type in all uppercase and the thought of retyping it to make it normal drives you nuts, here's where you can change it. You can change it to lowercase, title case, or sentence case. Sentence case is where the first letter is capitalized and everything else isn't. So for those irritating people that give you things all in uppercase, you can fix it quickly. So we're changing it into uppercase. All right, do you guys see any issues with this? Because we started in the center, did we run out of room for our words? I assume. We ran out of room, yep. Take your selection tool and look at this, the words that we have. In the center, there's a midline. At the far right, there is a vertical line, and at the far left, there's a vertical line with a square off to the left-hand side of that. We're going to hover our pointer over the left edge of the text to the left of the letter O, and watch how it changes. There's different icons. Sometimes you see a square with a bunch of bounding boxes. Move it a little bit more. The version that we want to get is the one that's a straight line with an arrow to the right. When we see that, we're going to click and drag over to the left, and that's pulling our starting point to the left. So keep pulling until all your words are visible and it looks reasonably centered. So we pulled that starting point to the left. Click away to deselect everything. And scroll up to the top of this page. Yep. And zoom in on this blue and white circle area at the top of the page. We're going to take our selection tool and we're going to click on this white circle. So notice it's a circle with a white fill and a black 1-point stroke. And again, when we add type, we need to add it to a path or an outside or an inside of a shape. There's two different ways of doing it. Switch to our type tool and bring your cursor over to this area. Notice that when you are anywhere, you have your normal insertion point. When you're at the top of it, hovering over it, you get a circle, a dotted circle with your insertion point in it. Don't click, but if you did, this would force all of your type to go inside of the shape. So everything you typed would stay inside of that circle. That's the default behavior. What we want it to do is to go on the outside or go on this path. So when that circle dotted icon is showing, we're going to hold down the Option key, and then we get that wavy insertion point again, and we're going to click once on that stroke, and it's going to put our type on the circle. So Option click on that stroke point. A normal click would put your type all inside the shape. Option click puts you on the border. Type in celebrating local, all in caps. And it overlaps itself. So we need to select all the type, Command A, and make it smaller. 40 point is too big. 16 point, and make sure it is still Roboto bold. Now the words don't overlap themselves. But again, they started where our insertion point was, and they went around to the right. It wasn't a center insertion. So changing how this one rotates around is a little bit trickier than on an open path. Because on an open path, your left boundary is the left end of the path, and your right boundary is the right end of the path, and it's obvious which way you need to pull. On a circle, your starting point is at 12 o'clock, let's just say, for example, and your ending point is at 12 o'clock also. So you have to make sure that when you're pulling one of those things, you're pulling the proper one, not the one that pushes it the wrong direction. This will make more sense when we do it, but think of them both being at 12 o'clock. All right, take your selection tool, and this whole object is selected. We're going to do a couple things before we pull it around. From here, we're going to do type in our menu, and then we're going to do type on a path, and notice all the different options. Let's just rotate through these right now. Rainbow, skew, oh, we can't see them until we do the other thing, sorry. Choose type on a path options, and that's going to bring up all of the options. So the effects are the same as what you just saw there. We can do skew, turn on your preview button, sorry, that's what skew looks like. 3D ribbon, stair step, gravity. Go back to rainbow. We're going to change our spacing from auto to an actual number that we want. Negatives and positives, that's terrible. We're going to do 20 point PT. That put a little bit more spacing between the two. They don't talk about it in this tutorial, but align to path, right now it says align to the baseline. Think about if this were a regular case. The letter G would have the circle part of it above the baseline, but then the tail would hang down below, right? So if we said align to the baseline, it's going to align to whatever's on that lower line, like in kindergarten when you start to write. The ascender is the tallest part. The descender is the lowest part, like the bottom of the G. Align it to the center or the baseline. So those are your options of how you make it position on that line. So baseline, rainbow, 20 point, okay. We're good with that. All right, take your cursor, look to the left of the word C for celebrate. Do you see those two lines that I was telling you about, both at 12 o'clock? One of them is the starting point, one of them is the ending point. However, we want to rotate this so that the words are more at the top so we can see them go across the top. I can't just pull my starting point to the left because it's going to lap, like think about people racing, actually lapping people. It's going to lap the ending point. So what we first have to do is move the end point back counterclockwise so that we can then take our start point and move it counterclockwise so that the two of them are together in another position or similar. So wait until you see the cursor, hover over them. One has an arrow going right, one has, oh, come on, work with me, an arrow going left. When you see the arrow going left, click and drag that one. That's your end point. So nothing's going to change. Keep pulling it towards the word local, and you can see as you go too far, you actually cover up local. So this is your end point. Okay, also here's a problem. I clicked on the overset type, I didn't mean to, and it thinks that's what I want to do. It has my cursor all loaded up. If that ever happens to you, just go to your toolbar and grab the selection tool instead, and that clears it out. So now you can come back and you can find this little icon and you can pull it to about here. Now you can go and get your starting point. So when you have the line with the arrow to the right, take that and start pulling it. So as long as you don't overrun or lap your back point, you're going to be fine. Okay, here's my starting point, and right now I told it can wrap all the way around to this ending point, but at that point I want it to stop. So center that as best you can. And let's save. All right, the last part of this chapter is on creating outlines. If you were to send this to a printer, legally you have to send with them a package document that includes all of the fonts that you used, proving that you have them and they're yours. The printer then, in theory, uses your fonts to print your job, and that's it. They never look at them again. The reality is they have Roboto Light on their system. They didn't need your font to activate, but you have to send it along. That's just protocol. It's saying that you own these fonts. If you're using Typekit fonts and your printer has an Adobe Creative Cloud, they have access to all this. It's not a problem. You don't have to send them along. So sometimes what people do is, let's just say that this was only the front poster. So let's take a peek at it. This is just a poster. It's not this back end part. They want to send this to the printer. They don't want to have to send Colt and Roboto. And frankly, they don't want the printer screwing up anything. They don't want the printer accidentally clicking in and taking out one of the R's because they think the corral was spelled wrong or something. All this is editable type, but if you turn it all into outlines, instead of being the letter F as a font, it's now just a red shape filled with red. It's a shape, it's a vector. Cool thing is, they can't screw it up. It's not a font anymore. Bad thing is, it's not editable. If you have a typo in there, if you wrote F-O-D truck, and you said, oh my God, add another O, they can't, because it's type. It's not type. It's a shape. So there's pluses and minuses, but there are times when you do want to outline some type, and there are good reasons for it. So let's go to our layers panel, and we're going to click on the visibility for the frames layer so we can see even more of this document that they made for us. Selection. We're going to take the selection tool and we're going to click on the word corral. And we're going to do an edit copy. And then we're going to hide this version of the word corral. We're going to do an object hide selection. So we made a copy of it. It's still in digital nowhere's land. We haven't pasted it anywhere yet, and we hid the original version. Now we're going to do an edit, paste in front, so it's going to come right back. This is the copied version. The original version is still there. It's just locked down and hidden from us. The reason we do that is because that's an editable layer that we can go and change if we need to, but we hid it, and now this copy we're going to turn into outlines, not text. So it's kind of a safety measure. It's making a backup kind of. With this selected, you go up to type, and then you choose create, where are you? Create outlines. Shift Command O is the shortcut for that. So now if we look at it and we click on the letter L, it's not the letter L, it's a shape. It's grouped right now. These are all grouped. We would have to ungroup them, but then we could, let's just do that, just show you how it's working, ungroup it. Here's the letter L. If I wanted to do something to the letter L, I could. It's just a vector shape now. So there's no need to send the font along, and there's no way a printer can do anything about it. All right, file save, and we successfully made it through that chapter. Kind of interesting, isn't it? There's neat things you can do with type. As we keep going on in the book, we're going to learn about appearances so that we can really tweak the letters to have two different strokes and a drop shadow and kind of stuff that we did in Photoshop. We can add different effects. And then we can save those as appearances, and we can apply them with one click also. So it's all about workflow and being agile. And if your client says, nope, all the edits that you want to make, hopefully you made them in a smart way that you can go back and hit on a style or a global, like a paragraph style or a character style, and you can fix it in one swoop, not millions of swoops. So go ahead and close that file. And